All right, ladies and gentlemen, we now welcome on a very special guest, Heather Laganelli.
You said it right.
Yep.
Yes.
You know, I've been contemplating all day. I was like, how am I going to prep for this interview? How about first we start with getting the name down, actually? So how did I do?
You did great.
Okay.
Yeah. You didn't have the Italian accent. You could add a little
I can give you a Mexican accent if you want.
I want to hear it.
Heather Laganelli.
I feel like it's more like Heather.
Heather
It's not often that people
Laganelli.
say Heather. Yeah, I've seen that.
That's perfect. Welcome on. Welcome to I Love You Say It Back. It's a podcast. How are you?
Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to talk to you for a lot of things and a lot of reasons that we're going to get into here in a minute. But want to welcome you on. What do you think about the studio? Just massive, right? Just massive. Just
Yeah, I was blown away.
big
Absolutely
time
blown away.
production.
Yeah. No, I love the cute sign.
I know, and in that, like,
cute.
I was debating on getting it like a different color or any like a purple because that's what our logo is. But I was like, you know what?
It's perfect.
Just kind of we'll make this thing. I still don't know what I'm doing with this light right here.
I was wondering, okay, so you had mentioned red or green or something. And I was like, why don't you have both? Like, just do two colors. But
Well, it's one stick, and I could change the color.
yeah.
But at once, because I feel like if I turn it on, it's just
Yeah.
gonna be like blinking, winking colors all over the place.
Yeah,
So
it's distracting.
yeah,
But I think it sets the tone. Like the two lights together, it feels like I'm in a professional studio.
But well, as opposed to what do you think this is? You don't think this is
Well,
professional?
I wasn't sure. I wasn't
feels
sure.
like a professional
It does.
studio?
It hit the mark.
If
It
someone
hits
says
the mark. It hits the mark.
If someone says it feels like I'm in love, it's like no. You're supposed to know if I'm in love.
I didn't
or
know
not.
what I was getting myself into.
Yeah,
I didn't know what
you
to
just
expect.
opened up a whole new can of worms,
I
girlfriend.
said yes, and here I am. So I wasn't sure.
You're being attacked.
Here I am.
What do you think about our Christmas tree? Which, by the way, we have to give credit. Heather brought in the little string lights. So I have to give you a massive thank you and shout out because I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure if I was going to do anything else to it. That's just, I got as far as I can get and I was proud of that.
You said that you like the festive feeling.
I
And
love
so
it. Yes,
I was
absolutely.
doing a catering job and we had done this like grazing table where we set out like a garland in the middle and like made it very like festive Christmas.
Right.
And then we like incorporated those into it. And so when I was listening to your episode, you were like, oh, I kind of want some little lights. And I was like, I have lights and I'm going to be there today. Perfect timing. Yeah.
So it's not brand new.
Yeah, you're not that special. Sorry.
Damn.
I hate to break it to you.
I'm ripping those things off. But there's things that we enjoy that I'm not good at. I'm not good at decorating. I enjoy food. I'm not good at making it.
Yeah,
But you can enjoy
appreciate
things.
it
Yeah,
still.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So let's start with the obvious here
Okay.
because we're going to get into this in a second. We're going to try some food along with having some conversations with you about just kind of your story. You're a fascinating person. And but first, before we get into that, talk to me about what we got going on here because this is a very fancy little setting here. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to kind of let's show them what we got here.
So this is a chicken piccata.
Oh.
Ooh, careful. Chicken piccata, and we do a lot of catering at Locale, this is where it came from. Oh, sorry, yes.
Yep, Mike. You're not a 17 News anymore here.
Oh, I'm not mic'd up.
You
I
gotta
know.
work a little harder.
It's okay,
over
I'll
here.
remember. I got it. So we do catering at Locale, and this was one of the things that we were catering for tomorrow. It's a chicken piccata with mashed potatoes. Have you had chicken piccata before?
I have.
Okay. And is it like on your, like, what would you rank a traditional chicken piccata? Like, do you like it? Is it like an eh?
Yeah, it's good. I've had it. You know where I've had this is for, what are you catering? Is it like a wedding or something?
It's like a birthday something. Yeah.
I've had this dish like at weddings that I MC and things like that.
Okay.
It's popular. So it's like normally when you have it there, you're not getting it like fresh out of a restaurant.
Right.
But I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So,
Okay.
but my go-to Italian thing is always chicken parm. Yeah, no, I'm like a 5-year-old.
Do you know what that is?
I don't. But if that's a hint, then I'm liking where this is going.
Yeah.
I'm loving this. Okay, we'll get to that in a sec. All right, so do you want to start eating first or you want
I
to get
feel
into
like we
the
should
conversation?
open this up and so you can see.
Okay, let's find out. Let's do
Okay.
it. Chicken parm. If this is chicken parm, I don't know how you fit it in here.
So,
Okay, so let's do
I'm
this.
born and raised Worcester, Massachusetts, and in college, go to college like anybody that went to college with me would say the same thing. chicken parm is like a staple. And so we have a chicken parmesan sandwich.
No way.
Legitimately.
This is incredible.
And I brought the marinara on the side because I didn't want it to get soggy in the drive over.
Oh my goodness.
So what I like to do is either dip it in, or you can just like pour it on the inside too.
Check this out. Look at this beauty.
Look at that.
Okay, so confession, I've never had a chicken parm sandwich.
What?
I've always had just the chicken parm. Look at that. That thing is...
Look at this. This one is...
That's...
So if you like open up the top and then just...
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You've thought about everything.
I try.
Okay.
Okay.
So are we doing... We're dipping
you can
it
do
in.
that.
I'm a dipper.
Yeah, do
I'm a
it.
dipper.
I love it. Yeah.
I like to know what is going into my mouth as far as like...
Cheers.
You don't want to do like too much ketchup or too much marinara. So here we go.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Do you sell this at your restaurant?
It's available right now for the next 2 weeks.
If you see me in there every day, just mind your business. That's fantastic. So let's get into that a little bit as we dive into the food and we can explain that. But you are a local business owner, entrepreneur. I don't even, when I was thinking about like, I was like, how do you describe it? Is it an entrepreneur, philanthropist, restaurant owner? What is it that you find the most joy in out of all those things? Or maybe I'm missing something else. Or you're like, I also would add this.
I like to think of myself as an artist.
Like actual artist? Or?
Yeah, I'm an artist. That's how I like associate.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I feel like everything that I do is connected to creativity and like creative expression.
Uh-huh.
And so I look at business, I look at my life, I look at the restaurant, I look at just projects from a creative standpoint.
And you said so you're from Massachusetts. How long ago did you come into Bakersfield?
So I moved out here after college. I think I've been here for like 18 years now, 19 years maybe.
And the reason why you're so intriguing to me is I'm just going to lay this out here as best as I can and as bluntly as I can because there's no other way to put it.
Okay.
You've ingratiated yourself and you've embraced the community of Bakersfield the way I've seen few people do, especially as an outsider, right? Or I find that so interesting where me even being born and raised here, I don't think I embrace the community the same way that you do. You love Bakersfield. You love this community. You love downtown. You love helping build and grow for the better.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
I think it's creating an opportunity to like make the most of the place that we're in. Like instead of just going through the day to day and showing up in a subpar way, I try to find a way to make the most of it. And I used to do that through travel, and I would find myself almost every weekend wanting to go out of town. And then I started to notice that like that's not really doing myself any favors. You know what I mean? Like I'm constantly looking forward to things that are outside of like my comfort zone or outside of my like area or my neighborhood or whatever. And so I made a pact with myself back in 2018, I think it was, to love the place that I live and not yearn for a vacation or a trip. Isn't that so good? I know.
My bad.
No,
I got lost in the sauce right now. I just took a bite of the chicken piccata.
Good.
My eyes rolled in the back of my head like something else was going on. This is incredible.
It's so good. I wanted to see if we could do a little tasting experience too. So I brought 2 different types of wine. This is a Dorner Family Farms. Are you familiar with wine?
I'm not good at it, and let's try it, and I'm gonna make a confession after. Go ahead.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So explain this.
So one is the champagne, and the other one is the wine. The darker one is the wine, and this is the champagne. So you can usually tell because the glass there'll be bubbles in this, and I think we've been chatting for a little bit, so there's like not so many bubbles, but this is the wine.
Which one are we trying first?
Let's try
Bubbles or no bubbles?
bubbles.
You got to dumb it down for me here.
Bubbles. Okay, so cheers.
I think this is bubbles.
Thanks for having me on.
Maybe that's my spit.
Cheers to 2025 being great.
Yes. All right, let's try this.
So let's see if the chicken piccata tastes different when...
That is really good.
It's so good.
Oh, my goodness. That's just champagne?
That's champagne.
Okay.
I lost my knife.
There's like a lemony thing, a zest to this. I almost thought there was wine in this.
There is wine. And grab your champagne again and take a sip while it's still in your mouth.
I was shamed for doing that when I was a little kid.
Usually what happens is it kind of mellows down the flavor. Could you tell?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it brings it out more.
The flavor of the food, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, okay, there's lots of ways of doing this. And this is like really exciting to me because when the wine complements the food, it makes the food taste better. When the food complements the wine, it makes the wine taste better. And so as a restaurateur, I want the food to taste better. And so you don't want it to compete with the food. You want it to like accent.
Enhance.
Yes, enhance. Yeah. And so when it's not done well, this is like a experiment, right? When it's not done well, that's when it creates this bitter kind of like weird taste where you're like, oh, I don't want that. That was good.
It's good. And you know what's so crazy about this is when you go to restaurants and you go fine dining, they're like, this one pairs really well with our, and I'm like, bro, shut the fuck up. I have a segment called Shut the Fuck Up. I think it's a bunch of bullshit, but like, I get it. Like I fully understand. No one's ever walked me through this process or like, hey, try this with this. Mainly because, ready for confession number one?
Ready.
I'm allergic to wine. That's why I said, let's try it first. I don't want you to be like, no,
do I need to call an ambulance?
No, not yet.
What?
Not yet.
What
Maybe by the time this
happens?
podcast is over, I start to struggle breathing. That's my thing. It's not bad. Wine is not bad. I know when I start to feel it and when to stop, but I'm fine with that. It's the same allergy that I have like with dogs. I'm severely allergic to dogs and cats, but wine is like on the lighter side. I just noticed that I'm like, I'm dying right now, actually. So if you couldn't, someone could call the ambulance. That'd be great. That'll be in about 20 minutes.
I mean,
thank you
for taking one.
You were the
team.
final guest on I Love You Say
I know,
Back.
right? This is it. I mean, it was nice to know you. Rest in peace in advance. But
And it's all your fault.
I mean, are you still open to trying the other one?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the other one I think is even better. So do the same thing.
Let's do it.
But with the other one.
Okay.
So the darker. So I think we started with the champagne, and this is a Riesling.
Oh, this is the wine. This is what's gonna kill me.
The other one. Well, wine and champagne are kind of the same thing. The only difference is one is bubbly and the other one's not.
As long as no one stepped on this with their foot,
I mean, it's no guarantee because you love feet. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! This. Look, I promise you, I don't know what kind of research she did, or I don't know what. This is amazing wine.
It's so good.
This is so good.
I know. It's like the best for people that aren't like typical wine drinkers. It's like a really great introductory wine, and it's light. I know, it's so good. And now try it with so take another sip.
Yeah, I am. Okay. So, sip taken.
It's really good. It's so good. I think it pairs better than the champagne does.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so I go on these rants all the time about like things that people pretend to be into, and wine is one of those. I'm like, I don't get it. Well, you guys are all faking liking wine and blah 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 blah. I'm like, how could a liquid possibly taste dry and all this? I go at it. But there's something changed tonight. This is amazing. I'm going to die in 20 minutes, but there's no other way I'd rather go out. This is amazing.
It's really, I think it's an undervalued talent.
It is, to be able to identify what goes well with what.
And to like experience it, like for somebody to do it well, and then for you to be able to be like, that made it better, and it actually complements whatever's happening. I think that's like the goal, and it's an experience. It's like an adventure. You
brought out the chicken parm, and it was like, then you did this, and it's like that the Dumb and Dumber scene. He's like, just when I think you can't get any dumber, you go and do something, and then it just blows me away. That is, we're gonna enjoy doing this.
I really like the reaction to the piccata though, because I was talking about something I don't even know what, and you're like, I can't talk right now.
I was like, yeah, it is. And I'm sure we'll find a clip of it where it's like just eyes rolling in the back, like the Doritos little girl. So good,
yes.
I didn't think I was like, oh, I have to pretend to like that chicken piccata because after you have the chicken parm, it's a wrap.
But I saw your face like, oh, I get it all the time, weddings, whatever. And I'm like, there's something about these mashed potatoes that are life-changing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because, so when I was in New York, my cousin worked at the French Culinary Institute, and one day I was eating there and she served mashed potatoes with something. And I was like, I need to know how to make those potatoes. They're so good. And this is that recipe from there.
What are these little dots on them?
Those are capers.
Never heard of that in my life.
Caper is like a berry, and it's kind of like, it almost has like a pickled flavor a little bit. It's very like bright, acidic, kind of like an olive almost, but a little different. Yeah.
I'd love to sit here and pretend like I think the level of food knowledge and sophistication in our buds and taste buds has never been like, I come on here and I'm like, yeah, I like eating this and I like burgers and this. It's never been more emphasized how behind I am when it comes to all this stuff. I'm really self-conscious. We might have to cut this, like
Shut up.
I have to pretend now.
No, this is best because then you're learning about something. Now you can, the next time you see capers, you're going to be like, that's a caper.
Yeah, I'll be like, I thought that was a pea 3 weeks ago, and now I know that it's a caper. Mind blown. I wanted to get into this because I know that I wanted to start with a easy question for you, but okay. I wanted to also really bring up something that you might not remember, but oh boy, do I remember it. I've got a bone to pick with you because during the pandemic in 2020, we were looking for things to do in the community.
Are you really
Let me finish.
Wow.
Let me finish.
I
want to give you a chance to explain.
Bring it
publicly.
Bring it.
We were looking for good things to do in the community to help out local businesses in any way, shape, or form. I was at the radio station. We all kind of picked a thing. We were like, you know what? We got to give back. We got to find a way to give back. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do food deliveries for local restaurants. And I was like, you know what? That'll help. It's like, it'll be one of those things where it's like, exposure to your restaurant. Hey, I'll deliver personally to your house, blah, blah, blah. I reached out to you. You were maybe the third or fourth, right?
The equivalent of used lights right there. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. But the reason why is because I don't know if the other places would check your DMs if you're a local restaurant. I probably messaged you too. It's almost like they didn't take me serious. They were like, oh, blah, blah, blah.
I took you serious.
I reached out to you.
I took you serious.
You wrote back, but it almost hurt more because I said, okay, let's set this up. And I will never forget you said, yeah, Saturday is going to be our busy day. We'll be able to make it happen. I said, wonderful. Give me the details and I'll be there for you. Left on scene. Never heard back from you until like 8 years later, which was a couple weeks ago.
8.
I don't know when the pandemic
sure
is.
The math is
it's not
8.
real life.
I know, not 8.
Explain. Why'd you leave me on scene? Why'd you leave me unread?
Did
you think I was a joke too?
This was me during that time. Help! I'm drowning. I can't breathe. I can't do anything in my life. Like literally, like anybody, SOS, SOS, please. Someone help me. That's what I needed in my life. And I know, like, yes, I couldn't even help myself. Have you ever been so overwhelmed in life where like you don't even know how to ask for help? Like,
you don't even know how to respond to a DM.
Like you can't even I was in survival.
And by the way, no, I've never been that overwhelmed in my life. I always find time for people who are trying to help me. I'm just saying that like
I literally I barely could. I don't know. I just still don't know how I survived it. Like I don't.
No, and there's a cool story. Obviously, I'm joking about that.
Yeah, whatever.
But I'll never forget it. But one cool thing about that is you were one of the people who got help from the Barstool Fund. Yeah, that was a cool story, and we haven't talked about. We've talked about a million things.
We haven't talked about that.
I always think about like how cool that actually was. What was that experience like? What was that process?
It was wild. So we were doing tons of charcuterie. I debated actually bringing like a charcuterie like experience here tonight because I had a feeling if you I don't know you well enough to know like what your likes are. And I love doing
You
wine
nailed it so
with
far.
charcuterie though. Like, oh my God, it's my favorite thing in the whole world. And so during that time, Christmas time, holidays, we do so much meat and cheese platters. They're called charcuterie boards in case you're not familiar with them. And we were like up to our ears. I think we were like 70 to 80 plus hours of labor in within like a 2-day window. So like trying to find 70 hours in 2 days, like 48 hours, not going to happen. It was crazy. And I didn't expect it. My brother reached out to me. He's like, hey, Dave, he's obsessed with Dave Portnoy, like loves Dave Portnoy. And he was like, did you see what he's doing? I'm like, yeah, this other girl that's in town, she's a figure skater. Her name's Corey. She trains hockey players. She reached out and she was like, you need to apply for this. And so I don't know, I made the time somehow. And like 2 days later, maybe 3, I get a call from him on Christmas Day.
From him directly?
Yeah, from him. It was wild. So I literally pulled an all-nighter. I stayed up so many charcuterie boards, like I can't even tell you, like all night, 2 days in a row, like without really sleeping. I think I napped for like 2 hours, Vic style. And that next day I told my brother he was coming over for Christmas Day, and I was like, just call me when you're on your way because I'm literally going to be sleeping for I don't even know how long. And I hear a knock on the door, and I look down at my phone. I have like 3 missed calls from some random number, and then I look down again, and this face, Dave Portnoy's face, is like showing up FaceTime on my phone, and I'm like one eye open, like completely out of it.
Oh, it's FaceTime.
Oh my God, FaceTime, national news FaceTime.
Were you familiar with Dave, or it was just someone that you heard it from your brother?
I follow him through like One Bite. You know, I love all of his pizza reviews. Yeah.
Restaurant tour.
It's great. And I've lived he loves New York pizza, but he also loves New Haven pizza. And I lived in New Haven for 5.5 years. And some of his favorite pizza places are like in New Haven. And so like Sally's and Pepe's are big pizza places in New Haven. And he's like huge, like they're the highest rankings on his pizza reviews.
Really?
Yeah.
So we're going to have to make a trip down there and try that.
It's freaking delicious. They will change this chicken parm is like crap in comparison to some of the chicken parms that I've had in my life because the bread is different over there. There's something about the bread on the East Coast with chicken parm that's like ridiculously amazing. And I have had it in a more traditional way where it's like an entree versus like sandwich, but East Coast style, it's like chicken parm sandwiches all the time.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that without that help, do you think you'd still be celebrating 10 years?
Oh,
or
no.
do you really?
No way.
That's crazy to think that they stepped out and did something that was kind of unprecedented on their own through donations and saved not only your business, but I'm assuming countless.
Life changing. Like what was happening during that time for restaurants was, I mean, unprecedented. There was nothing else that we've ever experienced like that in our lifetimes. And we weren't even allowed to be open. Like our dining rooms weren't allowed. We weren't allowed to serve people. Like a restaurant wasn't allowed to serve people inside of their dining room. And I didn't want to lose my staff. Like I wanted to make sure that our team had a place to be. And in order for me to do that, I basically had to take a loss. And in order for me to continue to run my business for the time that I did, like I think I'm still in debt, like 150 grand from COVID.
Are you bragging? That's a sick flex. I would love to be that, to have that money to be like in debt. Yeah.
You would love to. You want my debt?
Well, no. What I mean
By
is
all
like,
means, take it. Can we find a sponsor for that?
Yeah. Hey, somewhere. Hey, Locale, right? Locale Farm to Table, which I don't think we mentioned the name of your restaurant.
No, we didn't.
Locale Farm to Table, not only a restaurant, but also catering needs. If you got a wedding, if you've got, all the holiday parties are happening right now. I don't know. You might be already too booked for that, but any event, really. You got Valentine's Day coming up.
I'm a sucker for saying yes. So if somebody is like, I am like, if you have catering tomorrow, we're like, yeah, sure, we'll figure out a way to make it happen.
Hey, there's 48 hours in a day, right?
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine. But okay, so
life changing though, like 100% life changing. Like no matter, like I'm forever grateful to Dave Portnoy and then reaching out and really like creating like a name for Bakersfield as well. Like I know during that time, like we got a lot of publicity from that. I was on Good Morning America in San Diego. Like I was on.
Really?
Yes. So many people reached out to me because he was doing what he was doing and they wanted to do interviews. And it really created an opportunity for Bakersfield to get put on the map. I thought that was kind of cool too.
Well, what do you see in Bakersfield that most people like myself? I'll be the first person. Hand up. What do you see in Bakersfield that you feel like people like myself miss out on this town? Because you said something to me before you answered that. You said something to me that really resonated. You said, I'm going to treat Bakersfield, or I wanted to treat Bakersfield as if it was like like I'm on a long vacation. I want to explore everything. I want to try these foods. I want to go for these little hikes at Wind Wolves and the Bluffs and all these things. So you embraced it the way that people like myself maybe sometimes take it for granted.
I think when you live in a place and you're born and raised in a place, it's really challenging to look at that place as a destination. When I think of like where I grew up, I was lucky. My mom was very adventurous and she got me involved in a lot of different things at a really young age. And I think because of that, it created this like adventurous kind of mindset for myself. And when I look at Bakersfield, I mean, I try to do the same thing that I would do anywhere when I'm traveling. I do the work. I figure out places I want to see. I research. When you go to a new city, what do? Like you take the time to find cool things to do and experience.
Right.
And I think that's what I see in it. I see the endless potential because I look for the endless potential. And as a result of that, I find it. And then when I find it, I get excited and then I share that and then people get excited. And then it turns into this like domino effect and it's exciting.
The way you described it was perfect because I had a conversation with someone after and I was like, she's so right about this because I feel like I know Portland, Oregon better than I know downtown Bakersfield, which look, I'm not the proudest to say that, but it's a reality of, it's like, well, yeah, when I go visit, I've been to Portland twice, but when I go, I'm like, what do I want to try? What do I want to eat? What do I want to hike? What do I want to do? I've literally never in my life done that for Bakersfield.
And do you think that that's a disservice or like, what do you think?
I absolutely think it's a disservice because you become numb to the things. It's almost like you don't appreciate the things that you have because it's always accessible. Yeah. I'm like, I'll kick that can down the road. I'll explore. I'll go. I've never hiked the Bluffs. Frankly, I've never had a desire to because I look at big hikes, but that doesn't mean that there aren't like a beautiful like sunset hike that you can do at the Bluffs. And I missed out on that experience just because I've been so close-minded.
And you love sunsets.
Big sunset guy.
Love sunsets.
Wait, sunrise or sunset?
I don't know. Either of them are great for me. And I don't know which one you like more because I just see occasionally you have pink skies in your feed and I'm like, oh, that's so cute.
Every
I love
time.
it.
We are the #1 place for rating sunsets. Sometimes they could just give you a little bit of good color, but the colors aren't that vibrant. We had one of the best sunsets. Did you see it the other morning? It was at 6:50 a.m.
I was not able to. I think that morning I was preoccupied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I gave it a 9 out of 5. So Dave Portnoy rates pizzas. I rate sunsets.
Oh, that's cool. I did not know that.
Oh, it's just incredible.
I actually saw it and I was wondering what that was. That makes sense. So you literally, that's cute.
So thank you.
It's cute. Like what guy rates sunsets?
I think a lot of people like them. I just don't think that they rate them.
I know.
It's kind of like pizza. Like everybody enjoys it. How many people are really rating pizza? Well, nowadays everybody's doing it. Because
there's a difference though between rating a pizza and rating a sunset.
It is kind of. And then I wonder why people have questions about me. And then like,
I know. I've heard the questions. Yeah.
It's better to let them wonder, baby.
But yeah, sunsets in Bakersfield are great, and at the Bluffs they're great, and also hiking at the Bluffs is like a thing that so many people do on a regular basis. And then when you go into Hart Park, there's all those little hikes that go up by like the gun range and stuff.
Right. So I feel like I'm going to bury myself in a little bit of a hole here because I've always kind of made fun of the people who are in town. It's like, I love hiking, and it's like, oh, where have you hiked? It's like the Bluffs. And it's like, oh, God. It just burns that, that it just kills that little like, oh, well, that's not really, you're not a hiker. I don't even consider that really, it's more like a walk.
Yeah, like a nature walk.
Nature walk, yeah. So when people are like, yeah, I'm a hiker, I enjoy hiking, and it's like the biggest hike you've ever done was the Bluffs, it just kind of ruins that little moment. But I wanted to talk about this because you have interesting perspective on so many things. It's not just embracing the town that you're living in. It's not just trying to find or get the most out of every experience in those places, but you have great perspective on so many things. We've been here. What time did you got here at 5?
I know.
It's 9 right now. We've just been talking this whole time, and
I know.
It's honestly like it's refreshing talking to someone who's got so much great perspective on some things. So when you look back at your year, 2024,
Yeah.
right? Give me perspective on that and what people can do. Cause and I'm gonna quote myself here. I said, I think you might have just mind fucked me into the best year of my life. And you gave me the smile. You were like, good.
Yes.
What was the little exercise that we did? And talk to me a little bit about how you discover these little things, or where you discover, get the inspiration to kind of, because you've coached people and things like that.
Yeah. So what I like to do is, I'm gonna like move some stuff around, but eat. Is that what you said? I like to eat. I do like to eat. I like to eat. I like to experience food, and I also like to take account for where I've been. And I feel like oftentimes in life we don't really take a lot of time to like reflect on our journey. And whenever I do that, like some people journal, not everybody does. Some people do gratitude. Like some people have great mindful practices. And for me, oftentimes I feel like it's so easy to look at what I want and not appreciate what I have. And I don't know.
Big. That's
right?
big.
Yeah. Because when we look at our like goals and we look at like all these like dreams we have, it's so easy to get caught up in the like comparison mindset, you know? And when I look back at where I've come from and the journey and the accomplishments that I've made, I feel like it gives me a different perspective on like an appreciation for where I am. And then I love to take that and just write it down, especially at the end of the year. Like right now we're approaching New Year's. It's mid-December.
Good reflection time.
Yeah. And how often do we really take the time? I mean, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of our life to just take note and to be in gratitude.
I've told you this personally. I believe in gratitude and the power of gratitude, but I don't know if I feel like it's numb, or it's like that power of positive speaking or talking to yourself, affirmations. Like I'm skeptical on it because I'm a results oriented person. And when results aren't immediate, or it's like, hey, it almost feels like good thoughts. And it's just like, bro, I really think like, shut the fuck up. You know, like I got to get to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's one of these things where it's like, I understand the power and the value in it. I'm just not good at it, but it comes with practice. It's not, You don't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden like, oh, I'm practicing gratitude. And one thing that you mentioned right now is kind of reflecting on your year. And one of the things that I'm really bad at is we get so caught up and so focused on what's next.
Yeah.
That you never realize. You're like, holy shit, like a year ago, I didn't have this studio.
Yeah.
I didn't have, and you constantly hit these goals and you don't sit back and like, I just did that. You're like, no, now it's this. Now this is my new goal. Then you hit that goal and you're like, now it's so gratitude and appreciation and looking back on what you did is a powerful thing that I'm really want to work on in the next year.
I think it's so easy to get caught up in the like, what do I not have? What do I want? Like, what do I like where it's easy to compare. It's easy to compare to what we once maybe had as well. I'm totally guilty of it. I feel like there's so many times in my life where I'm like, I know what it feels like to feel a certain way. And if I'm not feeling that way, then I like yearn to feel that way. And sometimes it's like the grass is greener on the other side. Like
Always.
Yeah. And I think that it's not always about like comparing to what we had. It's more about like figuring out a way to find joy and like gratitude in the day to day and making the most of our like present moment versus being like, oh, I used to be this because I was 20 pounds less, or I felt this way because I had X amount of money. And sometimes life isn't going to be that way. It's not always going to be like perfect.
Yeah, it is. And it's so easy. I'm the worst at that, where you just kind of like start something. You're like, well, I started something from the rock bottom, but I'm comparing it to even frankly what I used to be.
Yeah.
I had a radio show that did very well, and you let go of that, and it's like I'm starting from the bottom, and I'm watching other people, kind of up here, and I'm like, it's tough, and it's a thing that I'm glad that you kind of brought up organically, and it's certainly been one of the things that I would say I'm talking about like weeks recently, just started kind of appreciating, and it's like, you know what? Maybe you do got to look back at the good things and the consistency of the podcast and the consistency of whatever it is in your restaurant or whatever you're doing, and reflecting on the positive and being like, damn, I've come pretty far.
And I think it's hard to do that when there isn't something like in writing. Like it's hard to really like take note. I find myself sometimes going through my Instagram and like looking at certain things to remind myself, but like how often do we get like we just get busy in life and we don't really like how do we measure, you know, where we've been? And so I feel like there's this really great like practice into celebrating how far we've come and like taking time to literally be like, dude, I freaking killed this. Like I wanted to do these things and I did them. Not only did I do them, but I'm continuing to do them. So when I look back at 2024 and the things that I accomplished and some of the goals that I had that I could feel good about now, like I aimed for those goals. And because I had a goal in mind, I have a way to be like, dude, celebrate that. Like, how are you going to celebrate that? What are you going to do? I bought myself this ring as a celebration of this like really crazy, unfortunate thing that happened. I didn't share that with you, but
you want to get into that or no?
I mean, I can like briefly mention it. It's just
tease the people. People love a good tease.
I found myself in a situation that I basically was a part of some identity theft, and
oh wow,
I didn't think that I could get out of it. Like I thought I was gonna have to close everything. Like I didn't think I would recover.
How long ago was this?
Just like a month ago.
No
it's been
way.
happening for like a year and like a couple of months, but like it's continuing to happen. And so I try to figure out a way to like move past it and just plan and like strategize and like do things that could get me out of a situation. And I came up with a solution recently and I was like, you know what? I need to remind myself that I don't need to come from like a scarcity perspective. Like, yeah, this is happening. Somebody's taking my money. This is not easy. And like, if I live in fear and I continue to live in fear, then I'm not going to be able to ever come from like abundant mindset. I'm never going to be able to be like, what is next? Or like grow with it or like progress.
And an abundant mindset to you means what?
Like aiming big, like dreaming, like setting bigger goals, like creating time for something that's more than the average, like setting intentions.
And do you think Bakersfield lends itself to people who have these big dreams? That's one of the things that I've argued with not only you, but a lot of people. I feel like there's certain limits, and we can get into a 12-hour conversation on this, but
my answer is yes. My answer is yes. I think that Bakersfield is a perfect place, if not even a playground, dare I say.
Perfect is a little pushing it.
A playground for big dreams. And the reason I think that is because there's a lot of people here that have done some pretty incredible things.
Right.
But I also think that when I look at the places I've lived in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Jersey, and now California. And I look at the opportunity that Bakersfield provides, and I don't see the same opportunities here as I would see there. And I say that because so many people have done so many things. I've had this conversation with many people. We have an ability in Bakersfield to do some pretty incredible things and to be the first people to do some pretty incredible things because Bakersfield still has so much room to grow. We're a great city because we have heartfelt connections with people. It doesn't feel like a big city, but it is a big city. I know that you love that. That's great. I love that you love that.
I'm losing my mind over here.
I'm so happy. Like my heart is happy right now. And Champaign already just makes me feel happy, but like to see somebody experience something and love it is like what hospitality is about. Like it's the epitome of hospitality.
You nailed it.
So good. And so I look at Bakersfield and I look at like unlimited potential. And I feel like most people that haven't lived here have the ability to see that. And it's so blatantly obvious. It's so blatantly obvious because there's so much room for growth. We haven't even we're not even at 50% of our capacity. There's endless business opportunities. There's so many great connections that are able to be had because people care about the growth of our city. Like, probably a ton of amazing, resourceful people in our community. When in other cities, like people wouldn't care. Like you would be the tiniest baby fish in a big city. And here, like if you have a dream, if you have a goal and you're willing to like put yourself out there and try something, then you have an ability to make a difference. And I think that that's what's most beautiful about Bakersfield.
Another thing that I'll add to that, and this kind of goes, I'm making my own point against myself, but Bakersfield is a unique market. And this is true, and you can ask people around this who work in media. To make it in Bakersfield, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a radio, whether it's TV, whether it's social media, whatever, we are a very picky market. That's why we're a tester market when we have like new foods, new all this stuff. They're like, "Oh, send it to Bakersfield." I always say this. Frank Sinatra has a song like where he's like, if you can make it in here, you'll make it anywhere. Talking about New York. Actually, Bakersfield is one of those places. If you can make it here, like realistically, statistically speaking, this is one of the toughest markets to break into. And I know this from my radio background. There's radio shows that are massively popular throughout the country. And in Bakersfield, they don't do anything.
Well, Bakersfield is a test market because it makes up it's like a great simulation for what the population looks like as a whole for the nation. So when I've done the research on this, Bakersfield makes up it's like a 50% Hispanic and 50% non-Hispanic. And as a result, as a result of our demographic, we represent the country well as a whole. And so that's why people choose us as a test market, because we are accumulation of what the country would be.
It's a micro that can speak to the macro of the whole entire country. That's fascinating. That's I've always, I mean, I grew up with that. My dad telling me about this stuff, and when I experienced it firsthand, I was like, which makes me even prouder of the fact of what we were able to do with the radio show. And it's like, you know what? It's one of those things where it's like being able to survive here as a restaurant, again, just in media, it really speaks well where it's like, if you're a person who has a big dream here, and you do well in whatever you do, it's like, don't be afraid to take that risk, because you got to believe in it and you just got to do it sometimes.
Well, and it's not going to go unnoticed. And I think that's where the key is. It's not going to go unnoticed. Like when you showed up on the radio and you showed up in a way that was pretty big, and you made an impact and you made a name for yourself. And as a result of that, people know who you are. Like I took a chance. I started a restaurant. People told me that there was no way in hell that it would work out. And I did it. It's been 2025 will mark our 10th year. Where else can you be? Where else can you dream like that and get the recognition that we get in our city? We have almost 1 million people in Kern County. I think the last census was like 980 something thousand people, 1 million people. And we still operate similarly to a small town where people know each other. Like we have so much potential.
Where do you see your restaurant in? And I want to go back to it because I just went there and just tried some of their food. You saw the reaction to this stuff. The cowboy tacos is what they're called. Who created that? Was that your idea?
Yeah.
You freaking nailed it. I was going to say, if it wasn't your idea, give that person a raise, because
I'll give myself a raise.
Fritos, was that shredded beef or what was it?
It was pulled pork. So we cook the pork for like overnight. We cook it at 3:00 and then we take it off in the morning around 8. So it cooks for like so many hours. What's the math on that? Like 18 hours.
Yeah, something. I didn't come here to do math, if I'm being honest with you. Just here for a good time and
food. A lot of hours. Slow cooked overnight. And then we do a homemade chipotle ranch. Jeremy, he came up with our barbecue sauce recipe, and it's like handcrafted. So it's really like a unique kind of combination of flavors with the barbecue sauce. It's black beans, corn, cilantro, tomatoes, onions, chipotle ranch.
Can I give you another confession? When I first heard about your restaurant, I thought it was like organic salads,
boring, basic
water,
food, cardboard,
no flavor.
Yeah.
And then I actually saw like you guys have like bacon burgers, and you're like, now we're talking my language, sweetheart.
I know you haven't tried a burger yet, but the burgers are amazing. We actually source our beef from Autonomy Farms right now. We just got a shipment in yesterday, and they're a local farmer in our community that's also producing for like LA as well. But Meredith, she's great, and she's been in the industry for a really long time, and she takes pride in what she does. And I feel like that's like the core, the best part of our establishment is that we focus on other people and what they do well, and then we bring those people together to create like this really unique experience.
Yeah, it's definitely fantastic, and definitely not because you have organic food and fresh food doesn't mean it's just a bunch of salads and you're just like, nah, you want yourself a good burger.
I hate that.
Did you ever struggle with that where people are like, yeah, we didn't go there, or we didn't because my husband doesn't like this vegan shit, and it's
I'm
just
considering changing the name because of it.
Well, you've made it 10 years. I think
I'm ready. Like,
after this podcast comes out, this is the #1 podcast in the world. The Joe Rogan, like he's waiting tables outside of this podcast studio. That's how big this podcast is. So after that, you're gonna break the perception. Hey, loser, get back to work. But I think it's one of those things where it's like you've made it this far and you've done so well. And
we still
I think
fight
it's only growing.
We still fight that though. We still fight like the what you said.
Macho man, like
so many people have this misconception that we are like a health food establishment.
Yeah.
It is there's nothing more in the world. Like the one regret I have in my life is naming that restaurant locale.
Locale farm to table. Mm-hmm. I never say locale, I say locale farm to table.
Which is I try to like cut away from that because it was so many people were saying that it was like too healthy. No.
Joe Rogan, cut this out.
We can call it whatever we want. I'm legitimately like brainstorming ways to rebrand for our 10-year to come up with like a new take on what we do. And I know that there's a lot of value in the name, and at the same time, like it's held us back. And I hear it 60% of the time, maybe more. When I talk to people, they're like, "Oh, is that like low calorie?"
Low calorie, that's funny.
Literally.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to we're talking about this thought exercise.
Let's do it.
Because again, it's a brilliant thing that she just did to me before we started the podcast. And I want people at home, if you're listening to this or if you're watching this on YouTube, I want you to, because you can practice this along with us as we do it live here. So let's get to it. Explain this and walk us through this.
So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to write down 5 things that you accomplished in 2024 that you're proud of. And
that I did already?
That you already have done. And this is just a way to kind of like close out the year and to express gratitude for it.
Okay.
I wrote it down on my phone.
I wrote it down right here too, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to pretend to write it down.
No, for the sake of you having this.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we talking about this as we do it, or?
We can, yeah, go right ahead. And if you'd like to share, I'm going to write 2024 on the top of mine. And then I'm going to make a spiral because that's how I feel 2024 was for me. A little bit of a whirlwind.
It's always easier to say when you're like, you have a successful podcast, a successful restaurant, or you're a successful entrepreneur. It's always so much easier to be like, what a whirlwind of a year. I'm fighting for my life on this podcast. And I'm like, I can't tell people like, oh, you don't know what I've been through. People are like, yeah, you haven't done shit.
I can't, because I know everybody has their hard. Like when I look at life and I think about like my hard versus your hard versus other people's hard, like everybody has their hard. And running a restaurant is just, it's passion filled. It's not for like somebody that's like just doesn't like food or like isn't excited about making people's day, or like, I don't know a lot of people that would go through this much energy to like bring an experience to your podcast. Like I try to make every single interaction I have count. And I feel like because I'm in hospitality, it's like, it's part of like the inner fibers of who I am. And it's just not like a quick, easy thing. Like it takes work.
Side note, did you own any other kind of business before you ran into this?
I did. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I feel like I started when I was like 10. Seriously. We talked about this before.
You guys want some lemonade?
I did that. We talked about this. I did a kids fair in my neighborhood. I charged like 50 cents to get in. I think you said you charged like $5.
$5. Yeah, I was a hustler. Yeah. That's a funny story. I've never told that on the podcast either.
I think that when, I don't know, like as a young kid, like the thought of doing something like that is exciting, but like what pushed you to want to charge $5 to come to something for?
We held the exact same event and you charged 50 cents.
I charged 50 cents. I was like, come play games, win prizes, like be competitive and connect.
I was charging for my services too. I was like, I'll play with you. I'm not just gonna, throw you in a room and hey, figure it out. No, but we talked about like I called it a sports event. Now putting flyers, and it makes me sad because when I was a little kid, like I didn't think about like what other people thought or how they were going to see this. You just go organically. You're just like, this is fun. I'm going to do it. I had one kid show up.
Wait, can you just like pause for one moment, like time out? If you could take that mindset and put that into your life right now, like how much would your life change?
Infinitely. If I didn't care about what anybody thought, said, or nothing, which is the sad reality. This is one of the saddest things I've ever admitted. It's like maybe my biggest fault is caring too much about, am I doing the right thing? Is it going to look good? Is it going to be am I setting myself up sometimes not to succeed, but to not look stupid?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you look at your child self,
I'm about to cry because of that fucking speech. Are you kidding me?
I think that when we look at ourselves as a child, I do an exercise like this. I didn't talk to you about this at all, but oftentimes when I do workshops with people to help create like a better mindset and well-being, I have them write a letter to their child self and give their child self advice. So like, what would you say to your 5-year-old self? Knowing what you know now, like what advice would you give to yourself as a 5-year-old?
It's wild. You're good enough to do it. And like that, I would look at me and be like, you're going to have this crazy dream that is putting you from, I don't know, whatever you believe in, God, higher power, higher being, or maybe you just feel something in your heart. You're good enough. You are absolutely good enough. No matter how much people try to hold you back, you're good enough, and don't let that stop you. That's what I would say to 5-year-old me.
And I think that's like high five worthy. It is, because it's so impactful. Like knowing what we know now about our lives and like how much life we've lived, and looking back and being like, these are the things that could help change and maybe like sway your future life. Like how much of your life did you spend like thinking you weren't good enough?
Right. And you look back and it's like sad. It's like, yeah, I stopped myself from doing that because I didn't believe it.
And then how is that showing up in your life right now?
Yeah, I don't want to dive into those waters. So let's get back to this. So I got my 2024 things that I'm proud of.
So do you want to share? I didn't even write mine down. So what did you accomplish that you're proud of?
I'm proud of the fact that I've ran. I should finish the year with 900 miles. 1, I've never ran. 2, I'm not a runner. 3, I hate running.
Yeah.
Before I was able to stay consistent with it. And that's going to be a theme throughout this whole thing.
What is so that's one of your biggest, you'd say?
Right.
Like
it's one of them. And then obviously the podcast, one of the biggest goals that I set out to do was to be consistent with it. Every Thursday, I wanted there to be a podcast, whether I promoted it or talked about it or whatever. I wanted you to know, like, hey, the audience knows there's going to be a podcast Thursday, consistent. We didn't miss a single day except for when we were transitioning from the old studio to this studio. And that is for a good thing.
Okay. That's incredible. So those 2 things right there, really big, incredible things. Have you ever celebrated those wins?
No, because I keep setting the bar higher. I keep saying like, okay, well, we hit this. And I've talked to you about this where it's like, you don't appreciate where you've gotten because of the fact that you're always looking for, okay, what's the next thing? I was cool. Last month I ran 100 miles. I was really proud of that because of Thanksgiving and all these things that get in the way. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm cool. Like I'm going to run 60 miles, And then I saw that I was at 791 miles for the year. And I was like, well, now I have to run 109 to get to 900 just to get that even number. So it's always like, I was happy for like a day and I was like, okay, breathe a little bit. But now it's like, okay, what's the next goal? 900 miles. And I'm no longer happy about the 100 miles that I just did. Now I'm just like, okay, well, I need to get to this.
Right. And so I think there's really value in celebrating that. And it could look a lot of different ways. And I brought these little like sparklers. So later, not right now, obviously, we don't want to start a fire. Yeah. But once we'll record it. We'll record it later. But as soon as we're done, we'll light these in celebration of your wins and your accomplishments from 2024. And I think it's important to just take that time to literally I'm doing this because I freaking killed it. I set out to do something and I did it. And like, maybe it's little, it can be anything. It doesn't have to be this. I just brought these just for like fun. It can be anything, like taking the time to buy yourself a gift, to set an intention to create that celebration for that accomplishment. So for each accomplishment that you write down, do my challenge to you and to whoever is watching and listening and going to go through this practice, take the time. If it's a $5 thing, if it's a handshake, if it's a pat on the back, if it's a high five, whatever it may be, like make the intention of saying, dude, I freaking killed this. I did it. I'm freaking incredible. I did these things. Like congratulations to myself, which sounds weird, but
it is. It's a hard thing to kind of embrace. You're like, it's like, where do you find the balance between like, oh, I'm celebrating something I did and feeling like you're getting ahead of yourself. You're like kind of looking big picture. You're like, well, I really haven't done shit. That's where I struggle. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. But then I take a big step back and I'm like, okay, well, in the big scheme, you're still not here. You're still not here. And that's the part where I think you get back to, you're like, we need to celebrate the steps that it takes to get there, because nobody gets there overnight, or it just doesn't happen like that, which is crazy. It is crazy.
And I think it's great. Like, so for me, can I share some? Or
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, like, I feel the same exact way. Like, I feel like if I don't take the time to actually recognize what I've accomplished, then I just keep moving forward and I'm like, oh, on to the next thing. And whatever I maybe have thought like 5 years ago that was hard or challenging, like, I don't think I ever would think that thing was challenging now. Like, I look back at the 5 years ago me and I'm like, that was nothing. Like,
that's so funny.
In that moment, I maybe felt like, oh my God, this is the hardest thing I've ever experienced. And then I do it and then I'm done with it. And then I move on. And now here I am 5 years later. And I'm like,
crazy.
Your 5 year ago, Heather, would have been like, what you're doing now is impossible. There's no way in hell that you'd be able to do that. And for whatever's happening, for whatever reason, like every time that we make a move, every time we accomplish one of these goals, every time we do something that's like really, really big, we build a foundation to create more success for ourselves in the future. And I think that is a part of our journey. It's like without this step, like we might not have been able to get to the next step because it's part of that process.
Absolutely. And that's how you got to look at it. You got to look at it as a process more so than just a results oriented. It's like, well, this is my goal, but I'm not going to get from here to here. It's like, you're not going to get to the top floor of a staircase, or, like you're not going to get upstairs if you're not going to step on this one and this one and this one. You can't jump that high.
Right. Right. And as you go, you're like, wow, this is hard, whatever, this is hard. But then looking back at like what you've accomplished in this year, maybe this doesn't seem like much to you right now because it's the end of the year. But in those moments before you did it, like the Vic that was like, I'm going to start a podcast, you thought that was a challenge. You did. You didn't think that was something that would be easy. You didn't think it'd be easy to consistently show up. If you did, then you wouldn't have even like been surprised that you did it.
Right, right.
So for me, we just reached 17,000 followers on Instagram. Locale just hit that like 3 or 4 days ago.
Unreal.
And I've been aiming to get there for a while. When I first started, we started with no followers, obviously. And it's been 9 years and like 7 months or something like that we've been in business. And every year, I think we've gained like 3,000 followers. And it's like such a slow road. And it sounds strange to be like, oh, this is exciting and at the same time, it's exciting because it's like heartfelt connections. They're not just like, this isn't a number. This is like engagement that matters to me, that right. I can feel like it's almost palpable.
It's none of that bot shit either.
Yeah. It's like people that really truly care about what's happening in our community.
Yeah. It pisses me off. There's like restaurants that they just pop up like, hey, we just opened up our page 3 days ago and we have 6,000 followers. It's like, no, you don't. You just bought those.
Yeah.
So I love the way you did it. And it's going to be longer. It's a slow grind, but you're getting organic. You're getting real people, real reactions, real feelings, more so than just people in freaking Dubai, just bots, It's wild. So good
Other
for you.
Countries, yeah. And then, so for the last, I can't even remember how long, I've made a commitment to myself to travel out of the country to 2 different countries a year. And I've stayed with it. During the pandemic, obviously nobody was traveling. And before that, I was out of the country.
Yeah. Well, I went to Lamont a couple of times.
It's questionable.
Family there.
I love Lamont. There's a lot of great convenience stores and amazing people. And, no, so I went to El Salvador and Guatemala this year, and every year I just set a goal. And I never know. Like I set that goal to travel to 2 countries a year, no matter what. I never know like where exactly I'm going to travel, and I'll set goals to go to certain places. And somehow, some way, it will always happen. It's so wild. Like I'll get an invite. The last 2 places I went, I didn't even plan to go to either of them. People invited me, and I was like, sure. Oh, the year's not over. Yes, I made that goal. I was looking at my passport the other day and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I set this intention like 15 years ago, and they literally have been to 33 countries.
That's crazy. You must be a damn good time to be invited to all these places.
I am a good time.
You know, Heather's a good time. We'll invite her. So, okay. So take me into the next step of this whole thing.
Okay. So the next step. So once you recognize where you've come, take time to celebrate those accomplishments, and just whatever that looks like to you. It could be like dancing to a song. It could be patting yourself on the back, right, whatever that is. Then I like to go into the year ahead. And so I like to think about listen closely
on this, because it took me a while. This is a wild concept, but I love it.
Okay. So I like to say, like, if we could travel into the future and already have gotten through the year, like the year is over, it's ended. We're sitting here and it's December 13th, 2025. So we're actually doing the same practice that we just did a moment ago. And the only difference is we're doing it as if we could bring to light whatever it is that we wanted. So whatever it is that we actually would want, like in the notebook, what do you want? Like literally, like, what do you want? Like, what do you really, truly, absolutely want from the bottom of your heart? And write them down, and don't get like in your head about it. You know, like just think about like if money was no object, if like there was no parameters, if the sky was the limit, like this is the only life we get. Like, what is it that you actually want in your life? And if you could already have it, like write it as if it's already happened. Verbalize, like put it into words as if I have done this. I did this. I did this. I did this already. It already happened.
And you know why I love this so much? Because whether it's a good thing or not, how often do we find ourselves in a situation where you're like, oh, if I could just go back in the beginning of the year. That's why I love it, because you're putting yourself a year ahead, and you're like, okay, instead of looking at the year and be like, I should have done this, I could have done this. It's like, no, now you're setting yourself up. You're like, okay, you wanted to do those things. Guess what? You still have time, because that year hasn't happened yet. Yeah. That's crazy.
And I think there's so much like power in that, you know, like setting that intention. Like in order to achieve a goal, you have to have a goal. And I think oftentimes people just don't take the time to write down what they want.